Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Everything Home. I'm glad you came to join me today. If you're a new subscriber, I hope you enjoy my show and I hope you like, share, and subscribe. If you're a person who's been here before and watched my channel, thanks for hanging in with me while I do all this crazy crafting stuff. I've really been having a good time doing it. Today's crafts are going to be 2-in-1. We're going to start out by doing little ornaments for our tree that I have right here behind me, and they're adorable little rolling pin ornaments that are very, very budget friendly. I think I did a dozen for just a couple of dollars. And the second DIY is a little more detailed, but it's so cool because I made this sucker out of a pan lid. No joke. I just took an old pan lid and I got it in one of my Goodwill thrift hauls because it was only 50 cents, and I just, as soon as I saw it, had this idea in my head. And we're going to turn him into this adorable little Advent snowman. His little nose lights up, it spins, and you can count down the days till Christmas. And I know we're already starting to count him down, but he took a little bit of time, so that's all right. It'll still give you a good idea. And if you don't make him for this year, you can make him for next year, because I'm telling you, he's so darn cute. He's worth it. So, without further ado, come on with me, stay till the end, and you'll be able to see how I put everything together and styled it. And let's make us some ornaments, and let's make us a Snowman Advent. Thanks a lot, guys. Thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. It's well appreciated. Bless y'all. Bye. To start out this DIY, you're going to take 2 different sizes of dowel rods. I believe the larger one's like a 5/8, and then the other one, I'm not really sure what the size was, but I just made sure that it was small enough that it would look like handles for my rolling pins. I'm just showing you here kind of a barer one that I took and sanded all the sharp edges off of it before I painted it. You're going to want to make sure to do that, because when you cut them in half like that, they do leave little sharp spiky edges, and you'll want to sand those off. And then I just simply put a coat of white acrylic paint on the rolling pin part themselves, and I painted the handles different colors. I chose reds, greens, and blacks. A tip: don't paint the very ends of your rolling pin or your handle. You can do that after it's together, because when you put them together, if you use just hot glue to put the handles on, it will not stick to the paint. And another tip is, if you want these to be sturdier, I would drill a little hole in the end of each of the rolling pins, and then when you attach your handles, use some wood glue and kind of countersink the handles down into the rolling pin. That way they'll be much sturdier. For the purposes of the video, I just simply used hot glue, but I will say that those handles will snap off easily with hot glue, so I would recommend wood glue or countersinking them with a drill. And then I just simply decoupaged some paper napkin that you know I love to use to decoupage. I had these pretty little snowflakes and buffalo check patterns that I decided to decoupage on. I just kind of cut them the width of the rolling pin, wrapped it around, and decoupaged it on. You can use Mod Podge to do this, or you can make up your own decoupage glue, which is generally what I do. And I just use an Elmer's school glue and dilute it with just a little bit of water. You don't want to make it too runny, but it works just perfect for crafts. Once you have the little pins all decoupaged, you can take a sanding block or just a small piece of sandpaper, even an emery board if you have one, and just sand off the very edges if there's overlapping tissue paper. It'll come off really easy and give you a nice clean edge. And then, like I said, you can go back in, and if there's any spots on your little handles that you need to paint, like the very ends or an extra coat on the sides, you can do that very easily. These little rolling pins look so cute as is, but I always decide to go a little step further. So as you'll see coming up, I decided to embellish them with some little things like bows and sprigs of pine. Some of them I wrote little sayings on them. Like this one here, I'm writing the word Mary in some script. I just thought it gave it a cute little touch. You can see I have one there with the little green bows on the ends. So it's just kind of fun to dress them up a little bit. For hangers, I just used some green floral wire and it worked really well. I wrapped an end around each handle. And then when I had the floral ribbon on, I twisted the very top center in a tiny little twist. And it seemed when I did that, it held the wire on much better. But you could use ribbon, you could use twine, fishing line if you didn't want any string to show. You can really use whatever you have to tie onto the handles and make a little hanger. And there you go. Cute little mini rolling pins for your tree. Now on to the second DIY. I took this old pot lid that I told you about that I picked up for 50 cents. I just thought it was the perfect shape for this project. And I just put a couple of coats of acrylic paint on. You could use chalk paint or whatever you had, but the acrylic paint is what I had. So I just patted that on with a sponge brush, and it did take 2 coats to make good coverage. Once that was done, I applied some Mod Podge glue, or decoupage glue I should say, because it's not really, I didn't use the Mod Podge brand, sorry about that. But you apply your glue and apply it in sections. I did this because I didn't want the glue to dry too fast. And then I sprinkled some silver glitter over the top. I didn't want the snowman to be bright silver, so after I had let all of that silver glitter dry, I went back through and I gave my snowman another coat of the decoupage glue, and I did it again in sections, and then I sprinkled pure white glitter over the top. And this really turned out nice. It really gave him a nice snowy effect. And then I took this little stocking cap that I did pick up at the Dollar Tree, and I thought it was so darn cute, and I took some light wire, and before I had painted the lid, I had poked holes around the lip. And I did this because I knew I wanted to attach things to it, and I thought that would be a great idea to be able to use wire and poke it through the holes to attach. And that's exactly what I did with the hat. I just put the wire through the holes, put the stocking cap on top, and then wired it to the pan so it wouldn't slide off. It worked really good. Now that our little snowman has his nice warm stocking cap, it's time to move on to his face. I usually start out my faces with the eyes, and to do the eyes, I generally start out making a line for the upper part of the snowman's cheeks. That way it gives me an idea of where the eyes need to be put in comparison to the nose, and it helps me kind of keep them even. So these little lines not only serve as the upper part of the snowman's cheeks, but it also serves as the bottom of the eye. Once I get those in place and like where they are, then I'll start with the inside corners of the eye. And with this snowman, I wanted him to have a soft, sweet expression. So I rounded out one corner, kind of in an oval shape. And then when I went to do the outside corners, you'll see in a moment that I slant them kind of down on a curve. They're not quite a perfect oval, but they're also not quite a triangle. They're somewhere in between, if that makes any sense. But you'll see as I do it, and that way it'll give you an idea. I'm thinking of eyes, but it'll give you an idea of how to do the snowman's eyes and give him that sweet expression. I flicked up a little bit on the outside end because this is going to be where his eyelashes are. and that just kind of serves me the point of his first eyelash. When I did the mouth, I dipped the tail end of my brush into my black acrylic paint, and I just put some dots, as you can see, on for a mouth, and I used that just to give me an idea of how I wanted my squiggly line to be, and then I played connect the dots. It was that simple. I just connected all the dots together, and I found this also helped to keep my line very even in the sense of its thickness. I continued on after I did the mouth, and I made him some rosy pink cheeks and just filled in his eyes with the color of green. I thought that was a pretty Christmas color. I added the white highlights by just dipping the tail end of my paintbrush into the white acrylic paint and just placing one little dot in each corner. And I think this guy has the sweetest expression ever. To get my numbers to line up in a nice curve, I just taped a doily to the little snowman's hat. And I was able to put my numbers on by going right along the edge of that doily, and that worked out really good. I then took some of these rub-on stickers or letters that I had gotten from the Dollar Tree, and I use these quite often because they work great. And I just rubbed on Merry Christmas where I wanted it on his face, because counting down from 25 to 1, instead of putting a 1, I just wanted a big old Merry Christmas there, and that looks really cute. I liked how it turned out. His nose was a challenge. My husband did put a couple washers on the screw that went through where the handle of the lid used to be, and these washers were just tight enough so that I can spin them, but when I attach his nose won't fall. It'll stay in place with each number. But I still had to figure out how I was going to attach the nose. So what I decided to do was cover the washers up with jute twine, and I just wrapped it around and hot glued it, and I covered that whole section where the washers were, but I was still able to turn it easily. I thought this jute twine would make a great base because these little icicle lights that I got from the Dollar Tree are what I'm going to use for his nose. That way I can light up his nose and the pointer will cover up each day that passes until Christmas. I snipped off the top of the little icicle, and I just wanted to work with the screw-on lid first, and I did the same thing to it that I did to the washers. I hot glued jute all the way around the outside and all the way around the top. Be careful when you do this, because anytime you're working with twine and hot glue, it's really easy to burn your fingers. So here what I'm doing, I'm just putting the lid back on the little icicle and making sure that it lights well, and it does. And you can see I have the cap covered in the jute twine all the way around the outside and the end. And now I'm going to try to figure out how I'm going to attach the nose. It's not that the nose is super heavy, but it's only going to be attached by a small part, so it will weigh itself down. So I knew hot glue would not be strong enough. I did decide to put some E6000 and hot glue on it, hoping that the hot glue would at least tack it in place for a moment. But I wanted to go one step further than that too. So in this part you see that I'm just getting out the E6000, crossing my fingers for luck, because I just wasn't sure how this was going to work. And I put a strip of E6000, and then right beside it I put some hot glue. Now I attach it down and hold it for a few seconds, and I'm at least hoping that it will attach until I can do the finishing touches to it to make sure it's anchored well. And it did work. Now what I did was I took about 4 or 5 strips of the jute string, and I made sure, oh, and see the nose, there it goes. Told you it wasn't going to stay. But I took 4 or 5 pieces of the jute string and I cut it so that it would wrap around the top of the nose and down each side. And then I did hot glue these on one piece at a time. But what they're serving, the purpose they're serving is when I wrap them around the whole nose from bottom to top, it anchors it. It gives it a more sturdy anchor. So you can see here I started by gluing at the top and then wrapping the twine down the sides all the way to the base of the nose. I did this with all of the strips. And then after I got that done, you'll see in the next step, I added one more piece to make sure that his nose was anchored well. I took my jute string after I had completed putting all the pieces around the top, and then I started wrapping it around the base of the nose all the way up so that it would have a second anchor to hold those previous strips in place, if that makes sense. But you'll see here what it looks like. So not only is the nose glued on, but it has strips going across it to hold it, and then jute string around the base to hold those strips in place. Believe me, this was a thought process. But in the end, it worked out really well. I'm really pleased with how tightly and securely that his nose was anchored on. Now we'll move on to some embellishments, and I picked up these sprigs from the Dollar Tree, and I think the holly one I might have picked that up from Walmart. I'm not sure if that was Dollar Tree or Walmart, but either way, Walmart's 97 cents and Dollar Tree is $1 for them, so sometimes the 97 cents ones are even cheaper to get from Walmart. But I took these and I decided I would snip them all apart and use these for kind of a pretty little scarf type floral under the snowman's neck. I took some of my light wire that I had, and in the little holes that I told you in the beginning that I had punched around the snowman at the base, I did that because I knew I was going to put embellishments on, and I knew I needed a way to adhere them good because hot glue would not hold. So I simply did the same thing that I did with the stocking cap and put the wires through the holes where I needed them, twisted them on nice and tight, and made sure the wires were secured before I started putting the florals. I snipped all of my florals apart and arranged them in the way that I thought they looked best. And I always keep some floral tape on hand so that when I do things like this, I can easily put my bouquet together or my arrangement, and then I can floral tape the ends so that holds it together in one piece. To do something like this, it's so much easier to have one solid piece to put on the bottom than it is to do it individually. So make sure that you tie or secure or floral tape your bunch of sprigs together before you attach them to your snowman head. It's so much easier that way. Once I had the florals taped together with the floral tape, I placed them where I wanted them to be, and I just simply tightened the wires very tightly around the flowers so that they would hold into place. Now, even when you attach everything, it's going to have a little bit of play, but once you hang it on the wall, the flowers and your embellishments will lay completely flat and look like they're just a cohesive part of the snowman. Now, every snowman needs a bow, and I just had to give this guy one. So I just made a quick, easy bow with some of this burlap ribbon that I've had from previous Christmases and saved. And I can't even remember where I got it, honestly. But I just make it about 4 or 5 inches long, I think, and then I just kept looping it over itself again and again until I felt that I had maybe 3 or 4 loops. I wanted this bow to be big and fluffy, but almost look like a Christmas flower too. So I looped it quite a few times over, and I think it did give me at least 4 loops on each side by the time I was done. And then when you've got as many loops as you think you're going to want, just snip off your ribbon evenly. I then bunched the ribbon up in the center and very, very tightly as I could, tied a strand of wire around the bow to hold it in place. Once I had that secure, then I could start pulling my loops apart and plucking them out. Once I had my bow the way I wanted it, I then took the rest of the ribbon and cut 2 strips to make the tails. Then I decided I was going to go overboard, and I thought, I've got extra ribbon, so I cut a third. I kept all of the strips together. And then I folded them in half, and I cut a dovetail end. That way it would be finished. I then just placed my strips together the way I thought they looked nice, and I hot glued each strip to the other. I folded my tails so that they would have a ruffled look. And then I simply hot glued them to the back of my bow. I then attached some hot glue to the florals, and I placed my bow on top. A few sprigs of berries hot glued to the center of the bow. I thought that would look really great. And then I really loved the leaves, but they were really big for the bow, so I just simply cut them apart and cut them down to size, and it worked out great. And that looks much better. And these also were just simply hot glued to the inside of the bow. Now our little snowman's collar is complete, and it really makes him look festive. One last little step, I just wanted to add some bling to his hat, and I had this little white jingle bell, and all I did was I took the same wire that I used to hold the floral and the hat on, and I weaved it through the top of his stocking cap just as if it were a needle and thread. And then I attached that into the jingle bell and secured it tight. With the addition of a tiny little piece of holly in the top of his hat, I think he's going to look just perfect. And voila, there he is, our little Snowman Advent. Isn't he cute? He turned out great. His little nose was a challenge for me, but in the end, I did it, and you can too. Merry Christmas. Thanks, y'all.